Fewer unbeaten team in the Big Ten. Ohio State 37, Maryland 17. Wrapping up here at the Horseshoe Ohio Stadium. Ohio State postgame press conference now complete. A slow start for the Buckeyes. Down 10-10. Mike Locksley decides to not score before halftime, winds up changing the game, and then Ohio State pulls away. 37-17 victory. Here's JT Tuimoloau wrapping it up. A defensive end sack, so a celebration there for the Rushman. You look at this game, Ryan Day said after Indiana a month ago that he needed to probably be more comfortable letting the defense win games. And I asked him about that afterwards, like, are you comfortable with that? No, it's probably not the ideal way, but it beats losing games. And Ohio State obviously did not do that today. They got some massive plays from the safeties. Josh Proctor with the first half touchdown, a pick six, a long time coming for that. We'll get into that in the notebook in a minute. Lathan Ransom with a second half interception, that was big. And then Sonny Styles completing the trifecta with a big tackle to get a stop later on. Emptying out up here in this recruiting lounge. Berm will have some coverage of any of the goings on there with visitors. Probably not the biggest weekend of the year for Ohio State, but always worth a check in there. So heading out, we're going to get into so much more of the post-game coverage here. Start with some of the injury updates. I know that we'll get into the game a lot. We'll have had snappy Jays with Berm. Travion Henderson did not play for Ohio State, so start there. Had multiple people tell me that he could have played. He's looked like an upper body injury. Thank you, sir. But Ohio State did not want to push it. Now, the running game was certainly not great, but see if Josh Proctor wants to get here. Signing some autographs. Proc, how many? Come on, tell me, how many did you drop? Not one too many.
I really have no idea. I haven't
come
kept
on.
count. It's been a lot, though.
Okay.
It's been way too many.
Well, the family is over here is ready to celebrate over here. Congrats on the win. That's a big time play. Look at these. Look at these folks over here. How are we? A pick six. How's the family feel about a pick six?
We're waiting on it.
We've been waiting.
Well, 6 years, better late than never. Congratulations. All right. So a celebration there for the Proctors. As I said, a long time coming. I think that's one of the true feel-good stories for Ohio State. The man sticks around. He was so close to just saying, that's it, 5 years, maybe try your luck at the next level. JT needs 3 pizzas and 6 smoothies to celebrate that. Donato's and Smoothie King. Weekly check-in for the wrap-up there. Quinn, what's the best topping? Sausage pep?
Sausage pep.
You work up an appetite out there?
A little bit.
Okay, all right. I do believe it. The hardest working man at Ohio State, right here. I think he's so humble. Okay, the most humble man at Ohio State, Quinn Temple.
Adam
sir.
King, is this my first appearance on the show?
No, you're on every single week because you're
that's
always
right.
standing
That's
right here.
I just want to say I predicted the score would be 34-17.
Well, that wasn't the score.
I understand. I just wanted that out there.
I predicted 41-17. That wasn't the score.
I felt very good.
Okay.
Biggest takeaway from all of this post game, how about that hair and beard? Looking phenomenal as always.
A lot better than it was, right?
I love it.
That's all I can do. All right, so out of some of the logjam there, Kyle McCord's still talking, but we heard plenty from him as he talked about that day. Like, let's just say it like it was. The first half was pretty ugly for Ohio State. And as I was saying, coming down the stairs, Ryan Day has gotten more comfortable with the idea that if your defense can lead the way, there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, generally you want to complement that with a more potent rushing attack. That did not happen today. So that goes back to also what I said. Travion Henderson, upper body injury, according to multiple sources with direct knowledge of the situation. Ryan Day said in the postgame press conference they expect him back next week. Without him, Chip Trainum took that start. He did a fine job. He scored a nice touchdown on a outside run to the field when the Buckeyes needed a score. So that's a couple games in a row with him chipping that in for Ohio State when they had to have it. And look, disjointed, too many penalties. I'm trying to figure out how critical or not critical to be of this game. They wound up winning by 20 points. They weren't at full strength there with Travion Henderson out. Marvin Harrison was still working through the ankle. I thought pretty telling statement there from Kyle McCord. He's like, well, his good enough is still plenty good compared to most people in the country. A big day for Marvin Harrison. Capped it off with the last touchdown there before Jaden Fielding with a field goal that was probably pretty important to some people out there in a 37-17 game where the spread was around 19.5. Could have been important. I guess we'll see. Fox tearing down over here with the big noon set. I think people probably saw a good amount of that with Urban Meyer appearing at various times throughout the telecast. They also made a pretty big show later on in the fourth quarter talking about Penn State and that game being part of the Big Ten gauntlet that they're going to put Ohio State, Penn State in a couple of weeks. Holy cow. Okay, it's getting dangerous out here. Watch out for flying trash cans. Purdue is supposed to be next week. Sid, we're getting their weather right now. Wow. Let's find some cover, Berm. That's hard to come back from right there. So prepare for big noon kickoff, Ohio State, Penn State. I believe they included in that graphic that Penn State, Michigan would also be on Fox. And then we already know that the last game of the regular season for Ohio State is going to be at noon, and big noon kickoff will be there for the rivalry game. So plan accordingly for that. I know we've been getting a lot of questions about that kickoff time, people trying to plan for that in 2 weeks. I think it is safe for you to bank on that one at this point. All right, go through the list. Talked about Travion Henderson. Emeka Egbuka leaves in the second half with what looked like a knee injury. No immediate update from Ryan Day on that one. What's that?
Bill said they said a bruise.
A bruise, okay. He was walking pretty gingerly. So another week, another wide receiver situation to monitor with Marvin Harrison. What do we think about this gigantic Buckeye head? It's pretty creepy. All right, so that about covers that for the injury front. All right. I wrote about this about 3 times in here. And again, when I mentioned I'm trying to figure out the proper way to evaluate a 20-point win over undefeated, incredibly talented, mighty Maryland team that came in here and definitely stood toe-to-toe for a half until Mike Loxley bizarrely threw away an opportunity to take a lead into the locker room. The special teams debacles really changed this game for Ohio State. So I suspected that it was a bad snap on the first drive, not necessarily a fake. You could have understood maybe trying to fake at that point to generate some momentum. You have the ball. Like twice they thought that they had that play dialed up last year against Michigan and Georgia. And then Cody Simon gets a ball into his lap, runs and gets stuffed. Okay, that's poor execution. A fake or not a fake. Ryan Day said it was not intended to be a fake, just a bad snap. All right, that's 1. Strike 1. Strike 2. Ohio State looks like they're going to go after a punt to block it on their own. Nobody gets set on the entire right side of the line. Okay, no harm, no foul. Compound the error with a holding call on a punt that is being fair caught. Bad execution, bad alignment, then a penalty. Strike 2. Strike 3, then they go punt on the right after that and give up a 26-yard return and commit an illegal formation penalty. This is all in the first half, all on special teams. I am bewildered about this. Ohio State has enough talent. They have more than anybody else in the country. And the composite rankings, Alabama's the most talented team in the country. Ohio State is number 2 or 3, depending on where you're looking. Okay, so they have enough players to do anything they want in any phase of the game. They have a full-time special teams coach. Full-time special teams coach. Not everybody has one of those. And these are critical plays in every game. It doesn't make any sense. Let's forget for a minute that I've predicted a punt return or a kickoff return was going to happen for like 6 straight years now, and it hasn't. Like, there's no explosiveness in the return game. they're not executing fakes, they're not executing blocks, they're committing penalties. I don't want the notebook and all the coverage of Ohio State beating Maryland by 20 to be negative, but like, you're just looking at this team and they're shooting themselves in the foot with some things that don't make a lot of sense. So I feel like it has to be said, because Parker Fleming is a full-time special teams coach, just for good measure. And the handful of plays to evaluate that group have not been good enough. So maybe now I can forget about that and move back onto some of the positives. Again, Josh Proctor, Lathan Ransom, and Sonny Styles, a three-headed monster there of big plays for the safety-driven defense. They forced a couple turnovers from Talia Tonga-Vailoa, 2 big interceptions there, and then some stops when they had to have it. There was a big 4th down stop in the first half. Ohio State's now done this 3 times in 4th and 1 situations in the last 2 games. They've been really good when their back's against the wall. I think it felt like at times that the dam was going to break and that Maryland had a chance to really put that game or take a big lead, maybe even put it away early, and they couldn't do it. Ohio State was able to get off the field in situations where they had to. Most importantly, Josh Proctor dashed right in. Whoa, okay. This is dangerous out here today, folks. What is going on here? Why is that following me? I'm concerned. This might be bad omen for next week at Purdue, Burn. We might be dead. All right, Josh Proctor, special teams. Rough first half, and then Kyle McCord still winds up throwing for over 300 yards. You have Marvin Harrison exploding for a bunch of big plays. Cade Stover gets his first touchdown of the season. Really well drawn up play, schemed up. Had that. Chip Trainum scoring. So like some of those leaders that we talked about all week, and the hard-nosed and the toughness and the veteran presence on this team. Ryan Day was really complimentary of that maybe in years past or last year, he felt like there could have been more panic from his team. You get down in a situation, you're at home, the offense isn't in gear, you're losing to Maryland, and then you start pressing the issue and trying to make things happen, and then get yourself into more trouble. That did not happen for Ohio State. They worked their way through it, and they wound up winning by 20. So again, that's a pretty big deal. Maryland is not the toughest team on this schedule. They played a heck of a game. They had a good plan. They have good athletes. A lot of the things that Berm said, I have to admit, were correct. But in the end, Ohio State still did the job that they were supposed to do. They won by 20. Same situation as a month ago on the road against Indiana. And I understand that there's probably a limit to how good people would want to feel about beating Indiana and Maryland by 20 points. And I understand that part. But if you beat every team in the Big Ten that you're supposed to by 20, you're going to go pretty far. Now, we're going to look at this in the way that some of the stuff the breakdowns. I thought the pass rush was better. Maybe the offensive line wasn't quite what it needed to be. The running attack, that stuff we're going to continue to look at and nitpick. That's the way that the season goes. If you're trying to hold Ohio State to a national championship standard, those are things that are going to have to get better. But is anybody going to leave here today in this overcast, windy afternoon, feeling really bad about Ohio State? I think that the second half trumps the first half. That's my take. If I'll listen to arguments against that, and anyone who has different opinions about the way this game played out, that's fine too. I think that's sort of the blessing and the curse of the way these first 5 games for Ohio State have gone. You can make cases either way to see what you want or believe what you want about this team, but they're 5-0. They beat Maryland by 20. They go on the road to Purdue next week. Not a team that you would think would pose a big challenge, but it is a road game, and the conditions are probably going to be pretty similar to this right now. So you have to be ready for that. Ohio State has to keep taking steps forward. Everybody in that room that we left right over there, here's how far our journey has been, knows that Ohio State can still play better football. But if they win 37-17, they're also not going to complain too much about that. That's what they did Saturday afternoon in front of a sellout crowd in the Horseshoe against unbeaten Maryland, which is no longer unbeaten. So the Big Ten race narrowed down just a little bit. Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan obviously still sitting there at the top in this Titanic East Division undefeated. We're going to have a lot more coverage of this as we wrap it up here in the Horseshoe and as we get ready for next week at Purdue. Thank you so much for joining me for the Notebook. Thanks to Berm for running that camera, and we'll talk to y'all later.